year ago. It does have a bit of a graphic theme to it, so please feel free to actually turn away or turn it off if you feel it might be a little bit intense for you. You won't see any blood or guts, but it actually does show you what can happen. Although it was a commercial, this is the things that we actually see when we go out as an inspector. So if you don't want to see this, turn it off now. Otherwise, here we go. Okay, unfortunately, although it is an ad, that's the reality of a serious injury after a serious injury. Okay, so who's WorkSafe? WorkSafe are the regulators for occupational health and safety. We're the police for OHS. Our vision is Victorian workers returning home safe every day. Over the years, it's really been extended to every person due to sections of the OHS Act which covers general public. My role as an inspector, especially in public safety, to ensure that everybody returns home safely, whether actually or employee or if they're a member of the public who've just gone out to enjoy themselves. So how do we do it? We provide advice and information such as I'm doing now to our duty holders, to employees, to the general public. We conduct inspections of workplaces and we enforce the law. Although I'm providing information in relation to this, I am the regulator. So I do have the powers and do enforce the law where required. Workplace inspections. We can enter a workplace during working hours or any time we believe there's an immediate risk to health or safety. We do not need a warrant. Unlike the police who do need a warrant, we don't need a warrant at all. We've got our badge that gives us the powers to enter any workplace. Now, at the moment, believe it or not, if you're working from home, your home is a workplace. So we do actually have the power to actually knock on your door and enter if we believe there might be a risk. Now, that is if you're doing work. I mean, if you're doing household chores, then we can't actually enter. But if we believe there's an immediate risk while you're at home, we do have the powers to enter. Anytime, the second part, anytime where there's immediate risk, example, if we see somebody working on a roof that we believe is working unsafely, we have the power to actually go in and make inquiries. We attend workplaces through inspecting workplaces according to focus projects. So what that is at the moment, everything's about COVID-19, so we're doing a lot of work in that area. But normally outside COVID-19, we might have projects in, for example, amusement rides, theme parks, which will be coming up shortly, transport, etc., etc. So we'll go out and just have a bit of a look around. We call it a hamburger with a lot, so because we look at everything. We respond to unsafe workplaces. So, for example, if we get a complaint, somebody complains that they believe their workplace is unsafe, we go in and make inquiries and then naturally respond to serious incidents. They're the worst ones, but unfortunately, they still occur. Employer's responsibility. Provide a safe and healthy workplace. End of story. They do it through many means of doing it, and it includes training, providing information, instruction, providing personal protective equipment where required, provide an induction, provide supervision, and discuss safety. I mean, that's the big thing, discussing safety, being open and transparent to safety, and allowing the employees to actually have a chat to them and say, look, this is where we believe we've got an unsafe area here, and then acting upon that. Employees, many employees don't realise that they actually also have responsibility for OHS in the workplace. And an employee very rarely can be prosecuted if they act unsafely. Employee's responsibility is simple: take care of yourself. End of story. You know, you're there, you go home, you go to work, you earn some money, you want to come home to your family, to your friends, to your sport, to your clubs, etc., etc. As we saw in that video, it does have a massive effect of your life. So just not from a work point of view, but for your entire life. So you have a duty to follow your workplace health and safety policies and procedures. End of story. Use risk control measures provided at work. Again, no shortcuts. If provided, attend health and safety training. It gives you a good insight into what health and safety is all about. Report hazards and risk in the workplace. Again, a big one. If you report hazards or risks, no matter how minor they are, they could end up stopping preventing one of your colleagues from having a serious injury. You know, we go to incidents and we make inquiries and we find out down the track that it should have been reported 2 or 3 incidents or 2 or 3 near misses ago. That wasn't reported, and then due to Swiss cheese effect, all the holes lined up and somebody got seriously injured where it could have been prevented. Ask for help or training. Going forward now, and I'm going to touch on it a bit later into the presentation. You're going to have a lot of young workers coming into the workplace now, with COVID-19, change of people moving out of industries, etc. So the chances are you will have a lot of new employees coming into the workplace. And don't be a bully. issues we'll quickly talk about: young workers, workplace bullying, violence and aggression, OVA, that is getting big. Touch on waterborne inflatables, aquatic supervision, and supervision of swim classes. Young workers. All right, just while I go through these slides, just for you guys to think about, how do you look after your young workers? Not just, oh yeah, we talk to them and we have a bit of a chat, but no, how do you really do it? How in depth do you take it? Okay, who is a young worker and why are young workers at high risk? Our definition of a young worker is any employee between the ages of 15 and 24, no matter what experience they have. Now, that's our definition of what an employee is. So a young worker. So some of you might already be, you might be in this category of being a young worker. Why are they at work? Inexperience, inadequate supervision, reluctant to ask or question, lack of training, eagerness to impress the boss, poor working attitude. Reluctant to ask questions and eagerness to improve the boss is probably 50% of the reasons why they get injured. They are scared or reluctant because they don't want to be seen as being silly, bit of confidence, and the boss may or the supervisor may have already told them or advised them, instructed them how to do it, and they're natural and they just forgot, or they're just still unsure. So again, when you actually are working with young workers, make sure that they understand, that they are really over it, even if you stand around and watch them do the task, to make sure they understand. Right, making work safer for younger workers. Consider age and experience as a risk factor. Okay, so when you're identifying hazards and risk or the work tasks they're going to be doing, look at their age and experience. Don't put them into a position where they've got very little experience in there at all and think they can pick it up, because they just won't. Give them a thorough induction. Really go through it. Remember, these young workers, this could be their first job they've ever worked at, so they don't know what induction is. Provide them with information, instruction, and training. Make sure it's good. You know, just don't give them a where practical, don't just give them a generic information. They may need something a bit more depth. You may actually even have to, for a better term, simplify it so they do understand. Ensure supervision levels are there, that they're getting micromanaged, but they are getting supervised. Encourage them, especially that one, encourage them to speak up. If they're not sure after 3 or 4 times, then find out what the reason why. Find out why they can't actually understand what you're talking about or what the work task is. Be patient with them. A good one is promote a buddy system for new employees, because that allows them to actually have the confidence to speak to their buddy and learn, and promote a safe culture. Sorry. Okay. Okay, to make their workplace, young workers need your support. Start the conversation with them, tailor their training, lead by example, because they'll be watching you, and foster a positive, safe environment. And that's a real big one. Make them feel comfortable at work. Workplace bullying. Most of you will probably most likely have a policy, or should have a policy, and our definition of workplace is characterised by persistent, repeated negative behaviour. I don't want to go on to over this too much, because most of you should be all over this, but going forward now, we do have a psychosocial team that look after this specifically. The general inspectors will actually start making inquiries into this as well. So we will be going into a workplace and asking for your policies, asking for procedures, making sure that your employees have had some sort of training in relation to bullying. Again, does your organisation have a policy procedure? You should have. It's law. You need to have one. So if you haven't got one, get one up. Has training been provided? Again, it's law. If you haven't started the training or had the conversation, start looking at doing it. As leaders, what do you do to minimise bullying? So think about it yourselves, and as employees, you know, and work colleagues, what do you do to minimise it? Do you call people out if you see it? Do you do it? Not knowingly do it? Again, think about it. And what do you do to support fellow workers who may have been bullied? I mean, we're in a especially at the moment, mental health is through the roof. So what do you do to support them? Do you actually have a chat to them? Do you ask them, are you okay? Do you have programs in place like EAPs and stuff like that where you can support them? Workplace violence and aggression. Again, this is with COVID-19, this is a big one. So again, does your organisation have a policy procedure? It should have one. Has training been provided for staff? Yeah. Well, again, what if they have provided training for the staff? What type of training is it? Is it relevant to your workplace? Is it just basic, you know, something like conflict resolution? Or if you're working at a sports venue, like indoor sports venue, where you will have people who've got adrenaline pumping and can be very aggressive, what training have you provided for them? What is your systems in the event there is a violence and aggression, say, to an umpire who is an employee of that workplace? Again, think about that. How do you support employees who may have been involved in an incident? You just go, okay, fine, no problems. You feel okay, good, get on with it, move on. Or do you actually follow up? And then on the other side of it is, do you actually have employees who can get aggressive if they come across an incident like this? Remember, you know, you got the fight, flight, and I add freeze. You know, so there's 3 there that when your adrenaline's pumping, especially if you've been in that type of incident or that event, the adrenaline does a lot of different things to different people. So make sure that you actually support the employees who may have been involved in that incident and follow up. It can lead to mental health issues. It really can. Most incidents now are leading to mental health issues down the track. So again, it's one of those things that, although it might be a physical thing, down the track, it then leads into a mental health issue. Waterborne inflatable devices. I know over the last couple of years, a lot of swimming pools, swim centres have purchased these and have brought these into the workplace as an added attraction for the customers. Sorry about this. I'll get rid of all that. I'll go back. Sorry about that. Okay, so inflatable devices. What's your level of supervision? You're having just one person there, you're having 2 people, 3 people. Draw up a plan, do your risk assessment on it, and make sure that you have good supervision. Again, you understand from the GSPO, you actually have line of sight, so you need to make sure that there is line of sight for the supervision of inflatable devices when they're being used. Anchoring, how are they anchored? Are they anchored next to the side of a pool? Are they within the fall? Are they within a fall point, or like if they're anchored next to the side of a pool? Are they within a fall range where a person at the top part of the inflatable device can fall from there or jump from there and land on the pool side? Is it moving a lot where people can actually lose balance and fall and get injured on the inflatable device? Water depth. Is it sealed or continuously airborne? If it's continuously airborne, you'll need to have it design registered. Power sources. The blower that you're using, is it IP rated? Again, where is it located? If it's sealed, how do you top up the air to manufacturer's requirements? And when it's when you're packing it up or setting it up, look at manual handling issues. Oh shit, sorry. Okay, again, aquatic amusement devices. There are guidance there, and there's Australian standards that you have to make sure that you comply with. Aquatic supervision. Risk assessments conducted. Have they been conducted? Are they up to date? Are they site specific? Deployment plan. Is there any person monitoring the plan? So are you watching your lifeguards to ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing? Systems of supervising for older swimmers and weak non-swimmers. As we all know, GSPO has just been upgraded or reviewed to include those points. How weak non-swimmers being identified? Again, we've had a big period of the pools not open. Go back over it, make sure that your employees understand that they know how to identify these weakened non-swimmers. How are these swimmers being monitored? Again, what's your supervision levels like? How are they watching them, etc. like that? And handover between guards, how is that being conducted? What training have they had in relation to that? Supervision swim classes. I want to just quickly touch on this one because over my period at WorkSafe, we've had about 2 or 3 cases where there's been near drownings in swim classes. So how do you transfer care from swim instructor to parents? So what is the system in place for that? What do you have? Again, look at it. This is all new. You're going to have new people coming in to do your to do swim classes. So review it while you've still got a bit of downtime. So it is going to be practicable when you're up and running for the swim classes. If parents are unable to supervise swimmers before or after, how is the instructor made aware of it? So in there, if a parent has two kids in two different classes and they finish at the same time, if the parent's at one child, how's the other child being supervised? How's the instructor being made aware? Because the instructor does the 25, 30-minute class and then moves on to the next one. So again, what's the system in relation to that? Because the non-fatality drownings we've had is because of that. That changeover, the instructor was not aware that that mum wasn't there or the parent wasn't there, and the child has jumped back into the water. And one of them was because they took the flotation devices off. So again, what is your system in relation to that? And finally, have parents and guardians been advised of your system? So have you informed them that this is what's expected from them for handover for classes? Summary: unique industry. You have legal obligations to both employees and other persons. Unlike a lot of other industries, they just have employees to worry about. You have both. And unfortunately, although employees aren't considered, if there's an incident with an employee, very rarely hits the papers. If there's an incident with another person, that being the general public, it does hit the papers. So, be wary about that. Be proactive with safety. Consult with the employees, their eyes and ears, and ensure persons and employees go home safely. Again, apologies for rushing through that. But do we have any questions?
Michael, we do have a question from John Clark from Brimbank Council. And he's asked, have visits to the home workplace been common during COVID? And if so, what were the reasons for the visit occurring?
No, we haven't gone to any home that I know of in my area, because we're broken up in areas. We have not been to any workplace, any homes. I think it would have to be very drastic for that to occur, and have to be fairly serious.
Sure. And Michael, if you can just let the viewers know what WorkSafe will be looking for, I suppose, when the facilities reopen.
Look, from my point of view, we'll be making sure that you've got your systems in place. So we'll just make sure supervision's the key. That'll be the big one. And then from there, it'll be things like chemical handling, making sure that you've got your trainings up to date with that, that your pump room is all nice and clean. You haven't got chemicals lying around. There's no leakages. And then naturally, and I don't want to at this point, because this for another day, will be COVID. If we're still in COVID-19, will be COVID-19 control measures.
Sure. And just for everyone who's viewing, LSV have put together a return to play document, which does have some example COVID-19 risk mitigants. So feel free to jump onto our website and have a look at that if you do need a resource. Michael, if you could just flesh out, I guess, the your passion for the industry. Sorry to put you on the spot there. What motivates you to continuously, put your hands up to be part of the Putnam Pool Steering Committee, to be part of the technical committee for the Code of Practice? What is it that gets you going with that?
Oh, the thing is with this industry is that it's all to do with the public. It's I've always loved this type of industry, sports and leisure industry. I just find that it's, especially with WorkSafe, it's an area that's really not well resourced, because our legislation, and we have a lot of inspectors who are really just about employee-employee relationship. And I know some persons from some people from the organisation would love not to be able to do this. It is a difficult industry in relation to the OHS Act, because there's only one section that actually with only one section for the public. But the public, it's really the only defence they've got, and that's for me is take away that section of the Act and the general public have no protection at all in relation to anything else other than being able to sue, which I believe is not the right way to go. Whereas having a section of the Act in the OHS Act allows me and a few others to have the powers to go in there, protect the general public and your customers, but also to provide information to the industry. As I said, we've got people in the organisation that aren't interested, and I just think it's unfair. It's a big industry, and I'm talking about the public in general. You know, amusement rides, anything and everything, camps, etc. It's a massive industry. It's a hard industry in relation to the OHS Act, and I just love the challenge of it. And again, protecting the public, but also protecting yourselves and providing with the industry, especially the swimming industry, with you know, advice, information, and just working together to try and make sure that every person goes home safely. And I don't have to, and I've seen many videos, I don't have to go to a workplace and watch somebody drown, you know, a child die from a drowning or to be rescued, because it's not a nice sight, as most of you people will be aware.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of comments from RJ. Great wrap up, Michael. Not rushed through it all. And very good comments. We should never compete or shortchange on our customers' safety. So, yeah. Michael, just want to thank you for taking the opportunity to present for us today.
You're welcome, Adrian.
It's great to get a different lens and see it from a WorkSafe perspective. This is the third, I think, the third iteration of this presentation that you've delivered, and I'm always walking away with key takeaways. So I want to thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Everybody else, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the Aquatic Industry Summit coming up at the end of the month. So we'll be touching on public health, safety, excellence, programming opportunities, culture, mental health, advocacy and training. So feel free to click on a link that RJ's just put into the chat and to register. Other than that, Caitlin, if you're available, I'll hand it over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Adrian. And a big thank you to Michael as well for that really engaging presentation. Definitely timely reminders there for many of us heading back into the industry, and the industry starting to open back up as well. So a very big thank you there for that fantastic presentation. Now I'll just start by sharing my screen for everyone here. Adrian, if you could just confirm that you can see that and you can see me and hear me as well.
Yep, all good, Caitlin.
Fantastic. All right, well, welcome everyone to the Swimming and Water Safety Education stream. It is October and this month's topic is Water Safety Week, and we've got some fantastic inspiration from some experts in our industry today. So Water Safety Week will be occurring during the first week of December, just like it usually does this year. And while it may look a little bit different to what it usually looks like, we do have some fantastic swim schools who will provide us with some inspiration for how we can still engage the community in crucial water safety education. So just to start us off, if you have just joined us, please do make sure you keep your microphones muted. We should have muted you already, so please make sure you keep those off as well. Please ensure that your camera remains off also. We are recording this webinar, but also so that if we do share any videos and the footage that we share here, it does stream through nice and clearly. If you do have any questions at any time, please do write them straight into the chat as soon as you think of them. Some of them we will be able to get to during the presentation. Otherwise, we will have a Q&A section at the end. Also, what we'd like to ask people to do is let us know in the chat where you are joining us from, your organisation, your suburb, whereabouts in Victoria or even Australia. If you're joining us from outside of Victoria, let us know where you're from. We'd love to see that there as well. And another reminder that this webinar will be recorded. So if you would like to revisit this webinar itself or revisit some past webinars, you're able to do that via our AFAR webpage. We will have a link put in the chat now as well. So I would like to introduce you to our fantastic presenters that we have today. We will be joined by Kylie Fleming, who is the Customer Experience Coordinator from Splash Aquapark and Leisure Centre in Craigieburn. And we're also joined by Janelle Falkingham, who is the Aquatic Product Manager at YMCA Victoria. We will of course have our swimming and water safety team in the chat at all times today, so we can get to your questions and also say a little hello to you as well. So to start us off today, we're thinking about Water Safety Week. The year feels like it has absolutely flown, and before we know it, we will be well and truly into Water Safety Week. So this year it is commencing on November 30th and we'll be finishing off on December the 6th. Who is involved in Water Safety Week? It's an initiative by the Play It Safe by the Water Committee there. Whereabouts is it held? It's Victoria-wide, so we encourage everybody to get involved in this week. And why do we do that? It's to build awareness and engage the community in water safety. So a really important time this year. So I'd now like to introduce Kylie Fleming, who will take us into her Water Safety Week program. Kylie, if you're there, I'll get you to pop on your camera and share your microphone as well. I'll just make sure I can see you there. There you are. I'll let you get on with it.
Hi everybody, thanks for having us today. I'm Kylie, I'm the Customer Experience Coordinator at Splash Aquapark and Leisure Centre, Craigieburn. Many of you have read today's agenda and thought, why is a Customer Experience Coordinator presenting on water safety? This presentation today is actually the work of Andrea Taylor, our swim school team leader. She couldn't make it today, so I'm stepping in for her. Andrea has over 15 years experience in the industry and she's very passionate about water safety. This year, unfortunately, we won't be able to run water safety in our centre. However, we hope that you'll be able to take something away from today's presentation on Splash's yearly water safety program. Next screen, Caitlin. So we think it's important for our students to have water awareness and not just water safety skills. Our water safety calendar is set and planned for the whole year. It consists of water safety messages for water awareness, no goggle weeks, treading water and flotation focus weeks, water safety themes each term, and education about shallow water blackout and search and rescue. Now, with our water safety messages, we educate our students twice a term on these messages. They take only 5 minutes up of the lesson time, and we also spend time focusing on swimming without goggles. This helps students not to panic and prepares them for any situation they might find themselves in. They're simple and important messages that we want our students to know and take away when enjoying all aquatic environments. We plan these messages so that they are relevant to the time of the year. So for example, we find most people go to the beach or the river in summer, so term 4 is when we would use these messages. We have treading water and floating weeks focuses 3 times a term, and during this time the instructors will take the students into our 50-metre deep water pool and practice treading water and floating and swimming back to the edge of the pool. This compromises 10 minutes of the classes in their lessons. In saying this, we tread water and float in all of our lessons in our designated lanes. However, we find it's really important to practice these skills in the deep water out of the student's comfort zone. It's great to see so many parents engaging in this and moving across to the 50-metre pool to watch their children practicing these new skills. We spend the whole week of the last term 1 discussing water safety around the home. During these times, we discuss supervision around babies and young children in the baths, putting plugs in and out of reach when not in use, putting toilet seats down and closing the doors, because we all know that children can be really curious. In the backyard safety, we focus on emptying all buckets, turning up the eskies, make sure they're upside down. Anything could fill with rainwater and become a danger to our students. Learning how to be safe in and around inflatable pools, supervision, and make sure we empty them when they're not in use. We talk the students through how to call 000. So we use toy phones for this. And we've got the doll's house, which you can see up on the screen. This we use for our preschool students, and we get them to talk about the dangers in and around the home and how to keep safe. Seeing this visually really helps some of our younger learners. We also find that parents are more engaged and listen to what we're educating their children about, and we hope that they can take something away as well. So the last week of term 2, we focus on swimming in clothes. During these lessons, we practice swimming strokes wearing full length clothing and no goggles or caps. The last couple of years, we've been getting responses with those students if we've asked them to actually wear pajamas. We discuss how much harder it is to swim in this extra clothing. We discuss what we would do if we get in a situation where we fell into water with our clothes on, such as falling off a boat. We discuss what we're practicing jumping into the deep water and getting back to the edge independently. We practice floating and treading water. For our advanced students, we also practice taking their clothes off whilst treading water. We schedule this week leading into winter. This is, again, a timely decision. We find that there's more risk of falling into the water fully clothed, long pants, long tops during the winter months. If someone was to fall in the water, we're not going to fall in with our bathers or caps on. In the past, we've had issues with parents, students forgetting to bring clothes to swim in on this day. So we've now implemented a program where we parents on the day of their lesson as a reminder, and now we have a majority of students coming along and bringing the pajamas. All these activities assist our students with obtaining the continuous survival sequence component of the Victorian Water Safety Certificate. These activities, look, and we know this works. We've had parents come back and with a real life story let us know. We had a 4-year-old boy went away one Easter to a caravan park, wandered off, an older child opened the gate and let him into the pool area. He was teetering along the edge of the pool, fully dressed, fell in, and he had the skills to float and get himself back to the edge of the pool. This is why it's really important and our focus on water safety and swimming in clothes. So we spend the whole week of term 3 on rescues. The main focus is never jump in to save someone, as you could get yourself into trouble. Instead, we teach our students to get a piece of equipment or get an adult to assist them. During these lessons, we practice throw rescues using various equipment. We like to use different equipment. You know, you might not have the kickboard or a noodle at the river. We discuss which equipment is best for which situation. We discuss what we would say to someone when they fell in the water. Grab onto the kickboard, kick to the wall, making sure we use our nice loud voices. Students demonstrate calling for help and waving a hand in the air to get attention. We practice the open hand and not the closed fist, so always open hand. We teach our advanced students how to identify non-swimmers, weak swimmers, injured swimmers, and unconscious swimmers in all various scenarios. We again tailor our lesson to meet the Victorian Water Safety Certificate, water rescue skills and competencies. So we move on to our beach and river themes. Our main focus for Water Safety Week are the beach and river themes leading into summer. We do our best to create these environments for children to experience. Not all of our students have actually ever been to the beach or the river. We try and provide new and exciting activities for our students to make it fun and a lesson that they will remember. We created a photo board cut out last year for our little members to take photos of them being lifesavers. Just helps to add to the fun aspect of the week and something that they can look back on. We also dress our swimming instructors up. They pop on their life-saving caps and some zinc to help promote being sun smart at the same time. We like to, you can pop over to the next slide. We like to incorporate lots of props to make it for a fun lesson. And I know that we all have budget restrictions and this can be a little difficult. So here are just some cheap, easy examples that we've used. So we've got red and yellow flags made up We use these to discuss why we need to swim between the flags at the beach. We've got some swim trainers. You can just grab those from somewhere like Pro-Am. They work similar to a bungee rope. Students have to swim their fastest. Unfortunately, they go nowhere. This is like simulating a rip. We also educate our students on spotting rips. We've got our danger signs, and we talk about what these signs mean. The seaweed mat and hoop, we get students to swim through the hoop and walk along the seaweed mat. Some students really don't like the feel of it because it's quite unfamiliar to them. The shell pool you can buy at Bunnings. We use these to create rock pools. We fill them with sand and sea creatures, and we explain why we don't touch the sea creatures. A word of advice from Ange is never fill your rock display with water because you will ruin the display. We use felt mats, which you can just buy at a $2 shop, and this is to create sand along the water's edge. And a simple loofah with some eyes glued to them can stimulate jellyfish, and we can explain again to the students why it's not safe to touch jellyfish and other dangerous sea creatures. Some props that we would like to use for the river. Again, we get the shell pool, we fill it with mud and water and make it look murky and dirty, just like what it would look like when you go to the river and you often can't see the bottom. We use our mats that we use in our normal swimming lessons. During this week, they've become our boats. We have used actual boats in the past, but we find that they don't last long, and again, this can be an expensive project. We use our reach poles to check the depth of the river water we're entering. We use grass mats, trellises and nets and trees just to create that environment theme. Again, we've got danger signs that you would see at the river, and we discuss what they mean and what students should look out for. With the older students, we use the kayaks and we teach them to fall off and get back on safely. Again, with all this, we know these works. We had a family report back to us. Splash family was at the river one summer. Mother noticed the child playing with sticks near the water's edge. She asked, "What are you doing?" And her daughter said, "I'm checking the depth of the water." It's really great to know that what we are teaching them are valuable and relevant potential life-saving skills, and this is what water safety and water safety weeks are about. Some other things that we include, particularly for our older students during Water Safety Week, is shallow water blackout, RIP education, search and rescue, and we focus on completing the Victorian Water Safety Certificate. Engagement from parents during our Water Safety Weeks is always positive, and we see them actively watching, smiling, and going home and talking to their students about what they've learned in lessons. The majority of our parents enrol their children into swim lessons so they can swim, survive, and be safe around water. Not all of them want them to be the next Olympic swimmer. Given the year we've had and the concerns we have for drowning this coming summer, it's more important than ever to incorporate water safety programs. Being able to tread water, float, swim on their back to the edge is really vital, more important than perfect freestyle. It's always good to educate the students about when to use water safety skills in real life. There is no point learning a new skill if you don't know how and when to use it. Some things we're doing, because we can't get into the centre at the moment, are publishing our own water safety storybooks for children. We've made some activity and workbooks that we've posted out to them, and we've had some water safety messages translated into language most spoken in our local area. So we just encourage everyone out there, never stop improving your water safety program, and the ideas are endless. Thanks, Caitlin.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Kylie. Now I'd like to jump straight into the chat. I've just noticed a couple of questions have popped up, or one particular one there from Sean, who said, are there any known statistics or resources that can be utilised to educate students on the risks of drowning within the home environment, excluding the backyard pool? So things like drowning in buckets and toilets. Now, Kylie, I won't put you on the spot there, but I think that Liz has jumped in and answered that question. So I'll just give this one a bit of a mention. Liz has posted some information there, and it is something that we can certainly look into further, as it is a really, really important statistic to know about, something really important to share with your students and families as well. So it's noted that there were 13 reported fatal drowning incidents from July 1st, 2020 to the 17th of September 2020. Now, this is 9 more than the 5-year average from the 1st of July 2015 to the 17th of September 2019. It's 7 more than the 10-year average from the 1st of July 2010 to the 17th of September 2019, and 31% of these were in the home or another location. So I guess that just goes to show why presentations like this, and a fantastic one from you as well, Kylie, and Andrea, I'll give you a shout out there as well. Thank you both for putting this together. Why Water Safety Week is such a crucial time to be teaching these skills. But it's also great to see that your organisation has been able to implement these water safety messages throughout the year at the different times throughout the terms according to when it falls. So I think you had something at the end of term 2 that led into winter time, when we would mostly be using those parts of the water as well. And of course, heading towards the beach or the inland waterways towards the end of the year when the weather starts to warm up. So a really, really great presentation. And thank you so much to Kylie for presenting, and also Andrea for putting this together as well. Our next presentation is coming to us from Janelle Falkingham. So I will ask Janelle to pop on your video and turn on your microphone, and you will talk to us a bit about Water Safety Week this year with all your online things that you have got going as well. So thank you very much to Janelle.
Thanks so much, Caitlin, and thanks to all the LSV team for having me today. I really think these AFAR sessions have been such a fantastic way to bring the industry together and to keep us all engaged in our work during this year that's been a little bit crazy. And personally, I must admit, it's really nice to focus on something and talk about something that's not entirely related to COVID-19 just for a little while. So I certainly appreciate the break there. So today I just wanted to share with you some of the digital options that we're currently planning for this year's Water Safety Week. I think, as with all of us, there's probably still a little bit of a doubt in our minds and a level of unknown in terms of how our facilities will be open for this Water Safety Week at the end of November, what our capacities might look like, what program modifications we'll need to have in place around the use of equipment and things like that. So my sharing with you today is really around the digital options that we're looking at this year. And of course, we hope to be able to be back into our centre and be activating some of the amazing things that we would usually see happen throughout Water Safety Week. It was definitely inspiring to hear Kylie and Andrea's plans. So the 3 particular things I wanted to talk to you today were how we're going to be looking to work with our local schools, what we'll be sharing through our Virtual Y program platform, and also our Water Safety Hublet. So first up, thanks Caitlin for the next slide. So first up, we're currently developing a series of lesson plans that can be delivered to children in a classroom setting over Zoom or the like. We'll be utilising some of the fantastic resources that LSV have already developed through their toolkit, along with some of the Y's own resources. Each of our lesson plans will be geared towards a specific year level, and it'll include topics for discussion, quizzes and games that our swimming teachers will guide the students through during that live session. I guess knowing that many of our aquatic teams at the Y are still stood down, we're trying to prepare these resources so they can easily be picked up off the shelf and then implemented when these guys are all back on deck. We don't know yet whether, I guess, one, we'll be able to visit schools and deliver programming to them in their actual classroom, or two, whether they'll be able to visit us. So I think planning something like this and having it in the works is a great solution to consider, particularly for those schools who would have been coming to you for their program, their practical-based program in Year 4. And I guess having an online option, although it's a pivot for what we're dealing with at the moment, I think having online options are really something that can benefit all of us moving forward. So that's what we're looking at doing for our schools. Thanks, Caitlin. If you can pop to the next slide. So Virtual Y, hopefully some of you have heard about the new Virtual Y platform that the YMCA launched earlier on this year. It's a project that was developed through funding that we received from the Department of Health and Human Services. It's an online hub which basically provides free access to fitness, nutrition, well-being and youth-based content. I'm sure someone wonderful will probably be able to pop the link in the chat for you, and if you haven't checked it out, please do so. It's a great platform. So that's my plug. So I've done that. That's great. We've been really busy building our families content page, which will sit on Virtual Y. There is some information on the families content page already from our children's program services, and soon we'll be launching a range of swimming and water safety resources on this page as well. So while our centres have been closed, we have been developing a series of do it from home activity books. You can see a couple of samples of the ones that we've produced so far. And basically these will be housed on the platform in a really easy to read format, and along with the option to download if people wanted to do them offline as well. Also on this particular platform, we'll have pre-recorded content and links to some external resources such as Lifesaving Victoria's education toolkit. So in particular around Water Safety Week, it will see edition 5 of our activity book being launched, which will be especially dedicated to Water Safety Week. Philbert will have a little theme around reporting all of the key messages that Water Safety Week and the Play It Safe by the Water campaign brings us. And that particular activity book will be launched through our Virtual Y platform. Thanks, Caitlin. And finally, our Water Safety Hublet, which if you haven't come across our Hublet, as you can see, it's basically an educational trailer, which was developed through the Play It Safe by the Water campaign. Now, usually our Water Safety Hublet would be on the road during Water Safety Week, travelling from Horsham to South Gippsland and everywhere in between. However, this year we are also planning to produce a pre-recorded session that will be shared with all of our swimming lessons students and our broader community through our Y platform and also our social media pages, etc. So the session will be pre-recorded, as I said. It will be led by some of our aquatic teams who will basically just talk through each of the activities that the Hublet holds, with the Hublet set up in the background, obviously, and all of the equipment. So some of those activities will be CPR, life jacket use, rescue techniques, RIP awareness, and beach safety. It will also contain captions throughout the video, so it will be accessible for anybody to be able to view. And I guess with the Water Safety Hublet, really importantly, it's great for children. It's really engaging, but some of the message within the Hublet and some of the messages that we'll be sharing through this particular video are really aimed at the whole family. We know there's some really important messages that some of our adults and our older population need to be hearing right now as well. The drowning statistics continue to tell us that there is an urgent need to increase the knowledge and the skills and awareness of our adults as well as our children. So we'll be making sure that we're incorporating that, and it's a perfect opportunity to get adults engaged through a video version of our Water Safety Hublet. So I guess, you know, a message to the industry is you don't need a fancy trailer to produce something like that. Anybody could put together a short video either from their facility or, you know, using their pool-based equipment, or even from a local waterway. We've seen LSV do a great job of that through their Watch and Learn series. And we've seen some great videos being produced over the last 6 months that have been shared on social media pages, etc. People talking about safety in the home and safety at the beach. So I think Water Safety Week is another great opportunity for us to do that. And so that's really all from me today. Thanks for listening, and look forward to any questions.
Thanks so much, Janelle. Another fantastic presentation and a great insight into how organisations can jump on board online learning as well, which is something we're not quite used to, but I think by the end of this year we certainly will be. And it will be very interesting to see how this takes us into the future as well, whether this is something that we continue to do, and it's a very important part of our learning as well, but hopefully we do get back to some face-to-face, as we know that's the most important way for students to learn swimming and water safety is in the water. So a big thank you, Janelle, for that fantastic presentation. Okay, moving on now. We do have one little thing to mention before we hand over to the next stream, the importance of registering for Water Safety Week this year. So ARV has put out this link. We will pop the link straight into the chat as well for you to gain access to also. Very easy to register. You just have to complete an online form. Make sure this is completed by the 9th of November this year, and make sure that you fill in a separate survey per facility. Also, the first 200 facilities registered for Water Safety Week will receive a small free quantity of merchandise to assist in promoting the week. So that's a little something as well. Hopefully everyone can jump straight on board and get registered. Now, I don't see any other questions in our chat at the moment, but if you do have any questions in future, you can contact us at schoolswimming@lsv.com.au or give us a call at 9676 6940. If you did have any questions for Kylie or Janelle or Andrea as well, please do get in contact with us and we can pass it on, or they may even pop their contact details in the chat. A little reminder as well before we go, I know Adrian mentioned this earlier, we do have the Aquatic Industry Summit coming up on the 30th of October. It will be all online this year and it is absolutely free to attend. So make sure you head on to the link that's in the chat now to register and join us on the 30th of October for that fantastic industry summit. So I would now like to pass it on to RJ, who will be facilitating our next presentation, which is our leadership stream. And today's topic is all about managing programs that lead to personal effectiveness. And we'll be joined by Matt Frost from Darebin City Council. So a big thank you again to our presenters in our education stream. And RJ, I will pass it straight on to you.
Hi everyone, I've got an inverted plug here as well. Make sure you register for the summit. Welcome everyone. I'm Sheila today. I'm just here to introduce Matt. So Matt has been around the industry for a little while now and is up at Darebin City Council. So he's been with the industry for about 8 years. A large portion of this time has been with YMCA Victoria. Most recently with Y Victoria, Matt oversaw the health and wellness departments across their 3 Casey recreation facilities as the active communities manager. This role led 5 middle management staff along with 130 health and wellness team members, conducting 260 weekly group fitness sessions, 700 monthly gym appointments, and 90 offsite monthly community programs. So since then, Matt has moved up to the city of Darebin and is the team leader of the health club and customer experience. Matt continues to work in fulfilling his professional mission of developing teams, facilitating positive organizational growth. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful. And developing strategic health and well-being plans to enhance positive impact in the community. So, Matt, if you're there, if you can turn on your screen and share your screen as well as turn on your camera, that'd be great. And please welcome Matt.
Thanks so much, RJ. I really appreciate that introduction. So yeah, I'm Matt Frost. Thanks so much for having me today to join you all. It's been fantastic to listen in around all things WorkSafe, and then of course around Water Safety Week And I guess I just want to add to that it's sad that our facilities aren't open at the moment, that we can't enjoy things like water safety weeks, but definitely a lot of planning there, a lot of great ideas that I think facilities can take back and hopefully introduce those when we are able to reopen again. So I'll just confirm, RJ, if you can see my presentation okay?
Yep, all good.
Yeah, fantastic. So today I'll be spending a little bit of time talking about managing programs that lead to personal effectiveness. Now, for me, I won't be discussing elements of certain programs because obviously on today's presentation, we might have people from all different fields within the industry. So I'll more be digging into personal effectiveness, and that personal effectiveness comes from you, whether you're in a leadership position, when you're in a staff position on the ground, but also around how to effectively manage yourself, which will then flow into managing your team as well. And I want to start off with a few questions to the group. And I will stress throughout this presentation over the next 20 minutes, if you can make sure that you've got a notepad and pen ready, because I want you to be able to jot down ideas or questions that I might pose to you as the session goes on. So the first question that we've got, let's make sure I can get this going here. So if you're in a leadership or manager role, so if your manager title was removed, would people still follow you? People don't want to be managed, they want to be led. So that's from Mr. Scott Williams. This is what I want to sort of be, is planting the seed throughout this presentation, whether you're in a leadership role currently or you're looking to progress into a leadership role, it's that reminder that people want to be led. And always questioning, does your leadership come from the name badge you wear, or does it come from how you work and lead your people? So think about that. Moving into one of my favorite games to play, and I think I got this game from a Filex conference many years ago, and it's something that's sat with me ever since. So this is the Keep Your Job game, and this is for leaders in the room that have staff working with them. So firstly, you need to ask your staff to write down their top 5 priorities. Now, your role after you've got them to write down their top 3 to 5 priorities is you must now write down what you think their top 5 priorities are. Now, the question or the game now sits in, do they match? So your staff have written down their top 5 priorities. You've now written down what you think their priorities are. You've checked if they're matched. And now, if they're not matching, you lose your job as a leader. I'll be really clear there. You lose your job, not the staff member. You lose your job for not effectively establishing and communicating those priorities and expectations with your team members. So I want you to note that one down, play the Keep Your Job game. I want you to take that away in the rest of this week. See if you can play that with some of your key staff. They write down what they think is their top 5 priorities currently. You write down what they should be. And if they don't match, you've got some work to do as a leader. So this is what's going to be the theme of the presentation today, talking all about how do we set clear expectations and priorities, and then how do we make sure that we're continually working towards achieving those priority areas throughout our day-to-day working life. So this is where a big focus must be on defining roles, looking at our core values, establishing what are the key rocks of work items that we're going to be focusing on, and then what are the measurables around how do we know if we've been successful. So this is all about keeping expectations really clear. And this is a really good question that you can write down to ask your staff once you've gone through a period of re-establishing what their roles are, what their core values are, and we'll explore some questioning later around that. What are the key rock items or the key priority areas, and then what are the measurables there? So this is a great question that you can ask your staff. Now that I've shared my expectations with you, what do you expect from me to help you win? I'll say that again. So now that I've shared my expectations of you as a staff member, what do you expect of me that will help you win? Now, you must take that answer very seriously. So once you've shared the expectations of them in their role, you as their leader, their manager, have to ask, what do they need from you to help them win? So think about that as we set those clear expectations, and it's up to you as a leader to identify how often you need to be revisiting those expectations to ensure they stay on track. And I think we're particularly in an interesting space at the moment due to COVID, with a lot of our facilities being shut in the sport and rec industry. It hopefully allows us more free time to really re-establish these expectations and clearly communicate them with our staff teams and re-establish what we're going to be like and how we're going to act once we reopen. Moving on from here. This is a really great question to continually ask yourself and your staff team, the measurability of someone's success. At the end of a workday, how do your staff know if they've had a successful day? So it's all well and good to build a great company mission with some great key values and then some core measuring items. But at the end of every single day, on a Wednesday, on a Tuesday, what can you put in place or clearly communicate with your staff team to ensure that at the end of the day, they can say, I've had a successful day due to X, Y, Z. And it's not, I've attended 3 meetings and I've answered 15 emails and I had a nice walk and a lunch. What are those items that they can say at the end of the day to ensure that they're aware that they've been successful towards those higher priority areas? Now, to develop those high priority areas, I've got an example of a way that we can break that down a little bit further. So this is the 5 big things. So this is what I'd advise you work with your staff on, because I'm really passionate about always finding an element in work that there's a balance between work priorities and business items, as well as a personal side as well. I think as everyone in a leadership role, whether you're still leading staff team on a ground role or you're in a more higher position, that there should always be a function of caring for your staff, both in their business output sense, as well as their personal life and how you can continue to support that. So what we've got here is, for the 5 big things, 3 key business items and 2 key personal items. And I've got an example here of how you would map out these 5 key areas and then what a to-do list might look like that sits underneath those areas, because we're always going back to, I guess, that foundational statement of the 5 key expectations or priorities of someone's role, and every to-do list item is matching back towards that. So we're always working towards something greater. So here's that example of that to-do list. So for instance, this is one I put together that might be around, so the 3 business items, so do great work with current clients, attract future clients, and write and speak about my ideas. So this is where you can start to help yourself direct your to-do list, or your project list, you may call it, towards those key business items, alongside the personal items. So there we have be present with family and friends and have fun and take care of myself. So yourself in a leadership position should know, not from a micromanagement sense, but from a caring, supportive and coaching sense, you should know these key items for your staff team so you can keep them accountable towards these, as alongside supporting these 5 elements of work items for your staff. Now, this is where we start to fold into how to ensure that you consistently work on these 5 areas every single day in your work life, because we know we can be distracted by meetings, by emails, by virtual meetings, by COVID, by unexplained events. So we need a process to ensure that we can continually make sure our work for both ourselves and for our staff are going back towards those 5 big things each day. So this is a 3-step process to this. So we have our morning minutes. So every single day when you get to work, ideally before you start anything, on a bit of paper, you're going to jot down your morning minutes. So you're going to decide what will make this day highly successful. So you can think about this. Are your to-do items aligning to your priority areas? So those 5 big items that we talked about just before. And now you're going to take these to-do list items off your bit of paper and you're going to schedule them into your calendar. And we're going to talk a little bit more about scheduling later. But that's a really critical piece there in terms of personal effectiveness, is taking those to-do list items off your to-do list and placing them into your calendar, into a schedule. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. Step 2. So this is a really good tip that I got out of a book called 18 Minutes by Peter Brigman. So this is every hour taking 1 minute to refine your focus. So this is where you might have a watch or a phone where you can set just a buzzer to go off every single hour. And this gives you an opportunity to take a breath and review what you've achieved today so far, and then review your calendar to see what you've got done for the rest of the day, and to ensure that any to-do list items that have popped up, they're then scheduled in either today or through the rest of the day or through the rest of the week, to ensure that they've got some dedicated time to complete them. And this is where we can try and combat that idea or the thought that when we get to the end of the day, we always think that, what did I achieve today? You know, I got stuck in meetings, got stuck in phone calls, got stuck in emails, and I had to help some staff. You've got to be able to accommodate for those things. So be mindful of that when you're scheduling your work items in your calendar, that you do leave some free time for interruptions. And because we do get distracted often, and that's okay, but we need to be able to make sure that we have a plan to get ourselves back on track. So we must manage our time because it is our most important asset. And one way we can continually check that we're managing our time well is by every hour redirecting our focus, taking a breath, and ensuring that we're on the right track for the day. Moving on to the last step, and this is what is this day about? So this is something you complete at the end of the day. And often I've seen it with myself, I've seen it with staff that I've worked with, that they'll be punching out the last few emails, or they'll be finishing off a phone call, and then they run out of work because they've got to go to a workout or pick up the kids. They've got to run off somewhere. You've got to leave a gap at the end of your day to challenge yourself to see if you had a successful day. And this is where you can start to get a better understanding around managing if you had a successful day or not. So these are 3 questions you can ask. How did the day go? So what success did I experience? And what did you learn today? So whether it's about yourself, about others, and utilize this information to plan your day differently for the next day and the days to come. And then lastly, whom did I interact with? Is there anyone I need to follow up with? And this is a really good tip here for me that comes from empowering, supporting our staff. That last question there, whom did I interact with? Anyone I need to follow up with, is my most crucial point, because this reminds you and allows you an opportunity to appreciate and thank your staff or anyone else that you might have interacted with during the day. So it takes just a few short minutes to shoot off an email or 3 to share your appreciation for a kindness extended, or to ask someone a question, or to keep them in the loop on a project. Just a few minutes at the end of the day. You've recapped your day, you've understood where the success was for that day, and hopefully you've identified that you've put some really good work into those 5 big items that lead back to the priority areas that you're focusing on as a business and as a person. And then at the end of the day, allows you to reconnect with yourself, as well as then reach out to any staff to share your appreciation or thanks for work that might have been done that day, or follow up on any quick items before you lead into the next day. So think about giving yourself time at the end of the day in your calendar that you commit to, where you can complete these 3 questions. So building more into using the calendar. So a lot of us use our calendar. This meeting today, this presentation might have been in our calendar, and throughout the rest of the week, I know we might have a leadership team meeting in the calendar. You might have a project planning meeting in the calendar, but very rarely do we use our calendar and the blank spaces in that calendar to actually schedule our projects, our own personal priorities, and our general to-do list items. The biggest question I ask is, if you don't schedule time to do something, when do you think it's going to be done? I've worked with a lot of staff that are fantastic at writing out a to-do list that gets to a page long for every single day. And then at the end of the day, they've still got the exact same to-do list there. But more likely than not, they've added items to that to-do list that they haven't actually been able to achieve that day. So you must be regimented and structured at the start of your day, following that 3-step process. Step number 1 was scheduling out your day and ideally your week ahead. So if you know that you're going to be bombarded towards the end of the week with meetings or project deadlines or items that you're working on, this is where your calendar can come in handy to schedule in blocks of time. But you must take it a detailed step further. You can't just schedule in a block of time to focus on cleaning up your emails, or a block of time to do my to-do list. You must be specific with what you put on that calendar. So it must be, as an example, at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, I'm going to write out the action plan for our COVID return to work plan. It must be specific and dedicated time given to your tasks to allow yourself to commit to those items when they arrive on your calendar. Now, you must commit to these items much like you would a meeting with your manager or with your staff. Too often I've seen staff implement this idea, but then when their own personal work items come along, they just disregard them as something they can do later. You must commit to them as blocks of time, and that you are busy and you're not free during that time. It's always a challenge to commit to that, but it's something you need to hold close to you and commit to those items. Now, this is where there's a really good tip here. This is once again from Peter Bregman around the 3-day rule. So this is where sometimes our to-do list might be overwhelming, or it's where our to-do list items don't fit into the calendar for that day. So this is a little 4-step process here. If the item that you've got is going to be 2 minutes or less, then you can do it immediately. You can get rid of that item, whether it's a quick email off, whether it's filing a bit of paperwork, you can do that one immediately. If you can't do it immediately, then you schedule it. So if it can't fit in that day, you schedule it for a later time. Now, the third item, one of my favorites, is you can let it go. It's okay to not do tasks, and we'll touch on that a little bit more in a second about how to not do certain items so you can stay focused on your priority areas. And then lastly, you might have a list, which is a someday or a maybe list. And that's something you might keep at the back of your notebook or on a list on your phone of something that once you do find time, you might sometimes get to it. And this is something you can review each month. And you might find that each month you realize that those someday maybe lists can now go into the let it go list. And this allows us to better effectively manage our day to day. And this is a great 3-day rule to ensure that all the items on your to-do list should be removed and replenished by 3 days maximum. Alrighty, so this is where we talk about, because for me, it's all well and good to sit here and say, build your to-do list, schedule your day, stick to those items, and you're going to have a clean day. But we know quite often it's not the case. And this is where sometimes we need to do the reverse of to-do lists, and I like to phrase it as a stop doing list. And I've got some examples here. No, I'm not going to read that article. I'm not going to read that email. I'm not going to take that phone call, and I'm not going to sit through that meeting. Whether it's you as a leader or working on developing your staff, you need to identify and give priority to both elements of a to-do list and functions working towards their priority areas alongside a stop doing list. And it's okay to tell your staff to not to do certain things. This is a really crucial factor as we get busier and busier in life, when we have our phones, when we have our emails, when we have our virtual meetings. It's endless distraction. And this is where you need to be able to take those opportunities as a leader and guide your staff to do the same, to be able to say no to certain items. You don't have to sit in every single meeting. You don't have to take every single phone call, with respect, of course. But this is a good way to remind yourself that not every single thing does have to be done. So this is 5 tips here to help you say no with more confidence. So this is tip number 1. So you can do a back of the envelope pros and cons. So if you're requested to do something, whether it's from your manager or whether it's from a partner, this is where you can start to do the approach of actually detailing down, quickly jotting down, what are the pros and cons of doing this task. And now the actions here in the next step is actions do speak louder than words here. So it's important that your actions are consistent with your words. If you are constantly answering yes to everything and then not following through because you're too busy, then that's going to have a greater impact compared to if you just said no in the first place. So remember that. Look at what you do consistently. And if you always say yes to everything, but then don't follow through, that does have a greater impact. So do say no early. And if at the start, if you're not committed 100% to the answer, then ask for more time. You don't have to jump on the yes. For a proactive yes, your boss and your staff team is going to appreciate it more often if you do either ask for more time before you give your answer to commit, or if you do say no in the first place. And of course, we all know calculating the ROI. So think about, this is much like the pros and cons. Think about you completing this task. What's the return on your time invested in that? And lastly, make sure you share your reason for saying no. And this helps you come across with that professional angle. Now, remember, all these tips are for you to improve your own personal effectiveness alongside guiding your staff to improve their own personal effectiveness as well. This is something that shouldn't just be held to you. If you do improve how effective you are, that's fantastic. But if you can pass these on to your staff, then they can improve their effectiveness as well. Now, moving on to saying yes appropriately as well. So when someone comes, so this is building on their stop doing this. So when someone comes to you with a request, you can ask yourself these 3 questions as well. Another way to go about it. So you can ask, am I going to be the right person to complete this task? Quite often, if you're in a leadership role, you know that sometimes you just need to delegate, but you might yourself not have spent enough time thinking about who to actually delegate it to. So you've just gone out to the nearest person. So this is where that person or yourself can ask, am I the right person to do this? And also you can ask, is this the right time? And that's where you might ask for more time before giving your answer, before doing a piece of work. And also, you must request if you have all the information. I know I've got stuck with this myself, where I've had managers request work items to be completed. And then I've realized once I've gone to start the work items that I don't have all the information at hand. So then I spend wasted hours trying to figure out what to do when I could have just sourced more information at the start. Now, you must remember, if you question yourself these 3 questions when you're asked a task to do, and either of the answers are no, then that provides you with direction and answer when, I guess, pushing back on doing work items or projects within the workspace or with your team. So remember, this is something for you to question yourself when it comes to filling out your workday, and also something to pass on to your staff as well. And it's a reminder that it's not helpful to you, your boss, or your organization if you waste time on the wrong work. And this is what leads back to the game that we played, that leads back to those 5 priority areas. And this is where you can ask yourself that question: does everything I do lead back to those focus areas? So rounding it out now, talking about empowering our staff. So we've talked about setting clear expectations, and we've talked about setting up a to-do list and ensuring that we structure out our week and our days to ensure that we're always working back to those priority areas and they're really clearly communicated consistently. Now, to ensure that we continue to achieve that approach, we need to make sure that we're empowering our staff and those around us to do the same things. So looking at this in a little bit more detail, so it's really key for a leader to understand your staff member's purpose. And we're going to go into some questions for this. Starting with some of those questions, so understanding what do they enjoy most about their work and what do they like least in their work. And I've built this out into some more questions, whether you can either screenshot this or I can share the presentation afterwards as well. So looking at, especially for like myself, I've just started a new role, so it's really key for me to understand in my staff team some of these key questions. I think that some of these ones are really key. So what is the original purpose for the role? What excited your staff team to join the role and what excites them now? And of course, on the flip side of this, you can also ask what doesn't excite them now about their work. And remember, all of these questions are building back to that foundational piece of understanding the priorities in the workplace that are going to work towards our bigger items. And you and your business are the only ones that are going to know what those key items are that you're trying to achieve. So all of these little functions build back to that greater purpose of what we're trying to achieve. So what do you enjoy most about your role currently? And a key one here is, what are your 4 core values? Whilst I'm a big believer in company values and aligning our work to company values, we need to be understanding that we have a diverse staff team. So we need to ensure that we're catering towards their own personal values as well. So what behaviours and habits do you need to commit to align yourself to your values? And a really key question here for leaders, what behaviours would you like your leader to deploy? That's a really key question. And I don't think that we ask enough as leaders. Too often we pressure our staff to say, what are your behaviours? Or we set the expectations for their behaviours and their habits that they must commit to ensure that they're a great staff member. But not enough do we ask, what behaviours do you expect of me as your leader to ensure that you can be successful? And then lastly, a great question as well is, how do you like to be kept accountable? And this is for a leader where we need to be adaptive and changing to our diverse workforce. We can't try and keep our staff accountable the same way. We can have some really clear processes and procedures in place, such as measuring, through our monthly reports or to measure success, but different staff are going to require different accountability measures. And speaking of accountability, moving on now to looking at providing feedback to staff, because we know sometimes that it's not always a smooth sailing ship. So here's a great simple little model called just the FBI method of providing feedback. So it's great to be able to acknowledge the feeling that something's given you, the specific elements of behavior, and of course then the impact that has on the team. And this is really great for both positive and constructive feedback. So for me, that impact, that's where you're pulling someone's either negative or really positive behavior. You're drawing that impact back to that greater purpose of what you're trying to achieve. So think about that the next time you're looking to provide feedback, rather than just knocking a staff member off and saying that they've done the wrong thing or they need to pull themselves into a line. This is where you can have, hopefully a better impact with them by going through these 3 steps of describing the feeling that it's gave you if someone's arrived late or they've been late on a deadline, what feeling that's given you, the behaviour specifically. So that's where you nut out what they've obviously either done wrong or they continue to do really well. And then of course, then the impact that either has on you or the rest of the team is really key to describe. And starting to round out now, looking at from a coaching point of view, this is the last grow coaching model tip. If you might have looked at some coaching in your leadership before, and this is a reminder, as some of you already might know, of establishing the goal. What is the current reality? Looking at the options that are on the plate, and then where's the willingness to move forward? So remember, this is just part of the facets of work that sit underneath establishing that greater organizational purpose and then what we're working towards, establishing those priority areas, and then looking at how do we manage moving towards this in a positive sense in the day-to-day. So a great way to do this is either through providing really great regular feedback, both positive and negative, and then coaching our employees to grow them to ensure that they're always improving like we're trying to do to work towards that greater mission and that overall purpose. And just to round it out now, one of my favorite quotes here, leaders have one role that is more important than any other: connecting with and developing people and creating an environment where people enjoy coming to work. And that's my presentation on all things personal effectiveness. So a reminder to look at that the 5 core values. So play that game with your staff and see if you lose your job or not. And then remember to always look at that to-do list of work items we've got, challenge them to see if they do align to those 5 key items that we're always trying to work towards, and then schedule them into your day for both yourself and your staff team, and then hold yourself accountable to those items as well. And that's it for me on that one. Thanks so much.
Matt, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. There was lots of little nuggets of wisdom in there. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you read Tim Ferriss. And
yes,
a lot of those,
yes.
A lot of these productivity gurus, and there's lots of resounding themes, and you know, even you know, one of the top solid gold tips you put in there was putting your tasks into your calendar. It's something that we do with our team. It's very important. Number of great insights in there. Eisenhower's priority matrix. If you're not across on as well, that's a fantastic one. And you sort of touched on that framework. So thank you so much, Matt, for that presentation. There's a lot of really positive comments in the chats as well. And one of the comments from Julia, Matt, I've never heard you speak before, but you are nailing it. That's probably sums it up. So well done, Matt, to you, and thanks for sharing your insights from over the years. If anyone has any questions, we've got another sort of minute here. It's mostly I think people taking it in and some positive comments there. So if anyone
Thanks everyone, I do appreciate that.
You can pass it on to us, and we can pass it on to Matt. Matt, if you're happy to share the slides, we can put that up on the webpage with the recording of this session as well.
Most definitely.
Well, with that said, everyone, that's the end of today's AFAR PD series from Lifesaving Victoria. We've had some great insights across safety and operations, swimming and water safety, education and programs, and finally, in our sort of leadership development space with Matt around you know, honing your personal effectiveness and some really key strategies for actually implementing that. So thanks again, everyone, and thanks for signing in. We'll see you in a month. Don't forget to register for the Aquatic Industry Summit. Very, very important. That will be a massive and fantastic day. Make sure you register. Thanks.